Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. It's been a long time since we've had a seminar, so it's nice to see so many familiar faces and some new faces. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Terry Stratton. I'm Director of Education and Outreach here at the Guild, and so I'm in charge of planning the seminar series for us. As always, if you have any ideas or wishes or suggestions for seminar programming, please feel free to contact the Guild via email or phone, and I will be happy to try to accommodate you as best I can. I'm really kind of thrilled to have this seminar tonight. It's been in the planning for a couple of years, I think, but they're so busy and so prolific that it's been hard to actually nail down a day. So I'm happy that today is the day, and I'm very excited to start a new program with Shindig. So we're online with Shindig. Hello, everybody. Hi. If you have questions, feel free to ask, and we will get to them later in the conversation. So ask away, and we'll take care of that. If you have questions in the room, please make sure you speak up so the online audience can hear them as well. If they sound soft to you, maybe you could say them a little more loudly. I'm probably going to be in the back monitoring how we're doing online, which is kind of scary to me. But you have your program with bios of Itamar Moses and Christopher Shinn, so you can take a look at all of the wonderful work that they've done. I won't take up any time relaying all of their credits, but I did want to start us off with a question, and then they will take the conversation from there. And I just want to know what you guys are working on now. I saw Dying City, loved. Nobody Loves You, loved. And I'm dying to see the new piece coming up at the Atlantic. And I want to know what you're both working on.
Well, yeah, the thing I'm in the middle of right now is in rehearsals at the Atlantic for a musical that's, it was an Israeli movie about 10 years ago called The Band's Visit. That not a lot of, there are people who know it, and it's a lovely, small, very moving, spare film just about an Egyptian police orchestra that goes to Israel to give a concert. But due to a sort of mix-up at the train station, they end, instead of the city, they're supposed to go to the end of this small town in the middle of the desert, and there's no more buses for the rest of the night, so they're stranded there. And it's literally just about these Israeli townspeople taking in these Egyptian musicians and the little connections that form between everybody for just the one night that they're in town. So the movie's from like 2005, 2006, and it's a big deal in Israel, and got to release other places. But this producer, Warren Wolf, sort of saw that it might work on stage and work as a musical because of all the musical elements in it. So I spent the last 2-3 years adapting it with David Yazbeck, who did Full Monty and Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. And yeah, we just started week 4 of rehearsals at the Atlantic, so we should start previews, I want to say November 10th or 11th. So that's taking up almost all of my time right now, but I'm trying to write new stuff in the meantime. When I have time in the spring, I just worked on a fine television show called Outsiders on WGN, one of the actors on which is it's a good show. Watch it. Season 2 begins in January. Yeah, that's what I've been up to. Christopher.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm nothing like really concrete. I've just been working, and I have a new play. I'm doing a reading in next week. It's never been read before, so see what happens there. It's a play about a prominent person who feels that they have a spiritual message to deliver to the world, and what happens when he decides to try to communicate it. I had a play in Hartford a year ago, and we're looking for a production for it. We have a couple exciting and special actors attached to it, and we're searching and seeing where we can try to make that happen in New York City. And I have a musical that I've been working on for a number of years, very small 3-person musical. We're doing a reading of that at the theater in New York next month. Second reading, It Feels Like That, is something that might find a home. And I'm working on I sold a TV idea, so I'm writing a pilot of my own idea. And I can't really talk about it because I'm not supposed to.
What if we all sign a non-disclosure agreement?
But I don't know what will happen with that. So everything's up in the air. But I'm doing a lot of stuff. So, yeah. That's what's going on. And now we just talk.
And then we just talk to each other because you're way more interesting than I am. I'm telling you, I'm just going to go watch all the questions from it. But if you need me to poke in, I'll ask about it. I'll sorts of stuff.
How did we meet? Do you remember
Actually,
when we first met?
I don't remember. I was trying to remember. I'm pretty sure I saw the four of us before I ever met you. Because I was like trying to remember the feeling I had when I watched it. And I was talking to my therapist about it this morning, and I was like,
how often do I come up and say you're therapist?
quite often. My therapist is Jewish, and he loves your name. His name is Israel. And I remember the first time I said your name, I was like, that seems really new. He was excited. You do come up sometimes. And I was.
What aspect of your psyche am I a projection?
That's a good question. We'll get to that in around the later in the discussion.
Yeah.
So I was remembering like I didn't know you, but like I was talking to Derby about how like the writer's personality in a good way comes through. Like you feel like you feel like it's a person telling you like this is who I am.
Right.
This is like how my mind works. This is how my soul works. And I remember this giddy feeling watching that play of like feeling like I was getting to know you, like getting to know who you were. So I think that's why it's actually hard for me to remember. And part of me thought maybe I met you before, but actually I think I met you a couple years after.
I think that's right. I think we first met when you sent me an email or a Facebook message or something after seeing something. And I knew your work before that. I first encountered your work when I was in my first job in New York, right after college. I moved here as an intern at Dramatists, and your play 4 was on the shelf there in the library. And reading that was my sort of cool. It was this spare, sad play about these sort of lost people tentatively trying to connect with each other one 4th of July in like the Connecticut town.
Yeah.
So I felt similarly. I think that's right. I think what I was just thinking of when you said that was like when I feel when you're working on something, you sometimes feel like you've tapped into something true and vulnerable about yourself. You sometimes haven't. And if you haven't, you know, maybe the plot is perfectly constructed in some sort of technical sense, but it doesn't matter if you're not if you're not doing what you described, saying this is who I am and this is how my soul works and this is how my mind works. On some level, you know, and you just feel like you can make this like technically well constructed thing, and it's just hollow. You know you haven't to deal with it. Yeah. And that's a terrible feeling.
That's it's also one of the mysteries of theater sometimes. Why that happens in some plays and in others it doesn't.
Why did you? I'm sorry, I realized I don't know the answer to this. How and why did you start writing plays?
You know, I think it was kind of I knew there were writers. I always loved to write as a kid. I loved to act. I knew there were plays and stuff. I didn't really know that there were playwrights. Like, I mean, we read plays in school, but like we were all older, like Arthur Miller, and like it just didn't really occur to me to actually be a playwright. And then there was a playwriting contest that the state of Connecticut used to fund through a private theater called Off-Broadway in Middletown. And I don't think that exists anymore. But like every high school got like a poster. It was like, write a play. And I just saw it one day, and I was like, oh.
It was like that moment in the Karate Kid where he sees the all-down karate championship.
Exactly right.
That's my reference for everything.
Yeah,
that's
good. I didn't have a Mr. Miyagi. It was just me on my own, figuring out how to do it. And I was like, all right, there's a contest, so I'll do that. And I entered the contest and I won, and I felt like this is like acting, in that you're like putting on a play, you're like being multiple characters, even if you're not performing it with the actors and you're part of the thing. But you're also a writer. So I felt it was like playwriting like brought together acting and writing into one thing. It was like the best of both worlds. And then my AP English class had a subscription to Hartford Stage, and I had gone to Hartford Stage previous to that. My mom would take me occasionally, but this was like subscribed to the whole season. And there was a Jose Rivera play called Marisol, senior year in high school. And it was like, I had never seen a new play like that. Like it was, there were scenes set like on a subway. And to see like the real, I mean, it's kind of a magical realist play in many ways, but there was a lot of naturalism to it too. And to see like real life on a stage, like contemporary life. I'd seen old plays and read old plays, but it was like, oh, you can really do this. You can put the world on a stage, and the world as it is. And so my first play, Four, I wrote that when I was 20. So it was like 3 years after.
There's something when you were 20?
Yeah, I wrote
That
it.
play's really good.
I read it was just like a dream. That came out in like 2 days. I was at NYU undergrad in the dramatic.
Were you like, it's always going to be like this? Once a year, I'll have a dream, and a play will come out.
And I'll tell you what happened.
It was never like that again.
You went to dramatic.
I did the grad program.
I was there undergrad. I wrote Four, and I was like, this is very good. I thought it was really good. And
You were right.
they had like a reading series. If you could submit your play to like, maybe like one play was produced, and it was like a reading series. And Four got nothing. It didn't even get read it. It got rejected. And the dramatic writing program at that time in 1995 or 6, when I wrote it, it was like, there were like 30 students a year. Like it wasn't like some vast. It was like, and I remember thinking like, oh, if I can't even get a reading and I did on my U program, the play I think is really good, I better think of something else. So I had a Francine Prose. I don't know why. She was teaching a fiction writing class in dramatic writing. I took her fiction writing class, and she liked my stories. And she called me and we had a little meeting. She said, "So are you going to do this?" And she said, "Well, you're a fiction writer. Are you going to do it? You're a writer." She's like, "Very few students are writers. You are." And I was like, "Oh." So I ended up going to Columbia and I played for pitch because I had such a bad experience at NYU with not my work not going. But it was then when I was there, I realized I was not fiction. I could have maybe written one novel, maybe, and like 5 short stories. That was like the minute, and then I knew there was like going to be nothing after that. So I started sending my plays out, and I sent it for the World Court, and they did it. So that was sort of how my playwriting career began. But yeah, I almost went into fiction because I didn't know how you became a playwright.
And NYU sort of has that problem, because I remember when I was in grad school there were very, when I was applying to grad schools, I asked people advice or whatever, where should I go? And people praised places like Yale School of Drama or UC San Diego specifically because as a writer you had guaranteed production opportunities. And I didn't know. I was 22. I was like, whatever. I want to stay in New York. That's where it's happening. And NYU it's a good program, but there are no built-in production opportunities. And they have these readings and these festivals. But even the grad students, you're competing. It's like your whole grad class plus like the 60 undergrad, and they just throw it all in the same pile. And then we'll be like, I have a chance of my 10-minute play maybe being chosen for a one-day reading. And I didn't know until I got out of school and started having some productions that I learned more in the first 3-week professional rehearsal process about how to fix a play than in 2 years of grad school, just because there's nothing more mortifying than watching actors stand up there saying it and it's bad. You have to change it. You're all around the table and everyone's being nice to each other. Yeah, I thought your pages were really. But once the actors are up there, you can't lie to yourself about it.
Yeah. Well, and that's where it happens. I mean, whatever a play is on a page, it works or it doesn't based on what's happening in real time, in real space with the audience and the actors you have in production. So it is weird that that program doesn't. I mean, I graduated with a degree in dramatic writing and had zero production. Not even in 10 minutes. I didn't get into 10-minute festivals.
No. No, I was rejected from everything the whole time I was in grad school. Yeah. Let that be a lesson. I know what the lesson is, but this business is full of rejection. That's the lesson.
I was doing some Googling, I was mentioning before the camera started rolling, reading about one of you had a full production of a play, I was an undergrad.
Yeah.
So you were writing plays very early.
Yeah, I mean, I decided I wanted to be a writer when I was really young. I think I was 10, and I thought I wanted to write fantasy novels because that was what I wanted to read at the time. I think it was a direct thing. I love fantasy novels. If I'm a writer of fantasy novels, I can somehow dwell within the world of fantasy novels all the time. So it'll be my job to make them. So that was the original ambition. And then towards the end of high school, a couple things happened. One is I'm from Berkeley, California originally. And I went to Berkeley High School, which is a very crazy, diverse, interesting, thriving high school with every possible niche and subculture you can imagine. And the artsy theater weirdo kids who were a couple years older than me were, from my perspective, I thought they were the coolest. And there there's a pizza place in Berkeley called the Valves, and under it there's a black box theater called the Valves Subterranean Theater. And I knew these guys who were like 2, 3, 4 years older than me. And every summer we do like a rock musical like that in the Valves Subterranean Theater. And these musicals were funny and like smart and full of pop culture references. I don't know if you've seen Get Gone. I haven't seen it in that period. I haven't seen this production, but I saw a workshop of it a couple of years ago. It's amazing. But this, they had this kind of like weird comic book punk rock aesthetic that I didn't know you were allowed to do. And it's not, for anyone who knows my work, it's not my aesthetic. I can't do that, but I was excited by sort of how much fun they were having, stuff they were doing. And then I saw Angels in America at, this was after it had already been on Broadway, and it was sort of going back out to the regional. So ACT did it in San Francisco in '94, '95, and I saw that production. And I'd been thinking about trying to write a play for a while, and that sort of got me started. So by the time I got to college, I could start at Yale. I mean, people know the drama school, obviously, but there's also a very thriving, very active undergrad theaters where there's just a lot of spaces and a lot of people doing it. Everyone, there's like 20, 30, 40 plays a year. Just, a lot of, they're doing Stoppard and they're doing, Angels in America and they're doing Chekhov and they're doing whatever, but there's also undergrads writing plays and putting them on with their friends. So yeah, my first couple of productions were, you just apply for, there was this thing called the Sudler Fund. I don't know if it still exists, but you could apply to your residential college, and if you just had enough people in your residential college involved, like the sound designer is also from this college, and the guy making the posters is the guy who lives across the hall from me. You would get a grant of like $1,000 or something. You could put up your play for a weekend. So I did that a couple of times. And they were really bad. And he said beforehand, he told me that in his Googling he found the Yale Daily News review of my first play, but in an act of enormous empathy and kindness did not read it.
I mean, I skimmed it all, but I thought it was like looking in a final seat.
Yeah.
He was too young. I don't want to know. But it was a good read. I could tell it was a good read.
Okay. Then
mixed.
So yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. What about Angels in America? I feel like our generation, that was a play that sent us all in many directions.
It's funny, I was on this is years ago now, but I was on a panel at NYU with a bunch of playwrights, talking to the undergrad and grad students at Tisch, and that question came up of like, when did you start? What got you started, and what turned you into a playwright? And there were people of various ages on the panel, but everyone around our age had an Angels in America story. It was like that play somehow created an entire generation of playwrights. And I don't know what it was. I wonder. I haven't seen it in a long time. I actually didn't see the signature revival, which So That a Pound, which I regret. And I wonder what impact it would have on me now, being so much more steeped in theater or whatever. But I was just completely overwhelmed by it. It was so exciting. It was so funny and so imaginative. And like it was just like he did whatever he wanted, and yet it all worked. And it was so. There was a lot of magic in it, but it somehow didn't separate it at all from these as recognizable human people. I don't think I would have been able to articulate that at the time, but looking back, I think that's what it was. Yes, that it was the world I recognized and also completely magical in a way that wasn't. You couldn't sever. Yeah, and no one. I mean, there have been great plays since then. I'm quite one of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me that play, there's like debates about race, politics, history. That not only had I not really seen that in the theater, I think I was 18 when I saw the first. I didn't really know. It was also like being given access to an intellectual world that I didn't really know. Growing up in Hartford, I didn't know it existed. I didn't know my intellectuals and. I would read novels and stuff, but I didn't really know that there was a world of debate about things like race and politics. And so hearing that, I mean, first of all, just seeing it on stage was amazing. But then being like, oh, there's a whole world for me to learn about, and things for me to pursue intellectually. That was really exciting. And I think that it inspired me as an artist, but also maybe even more so, it's like, okay, I have to learn about this country and learn about the debates that are being presented in this play in such a compelling, dramatic way.
It's also rare. I mean, Hamilton is sort of an example right now, but it's also rare for a piece of theater to come to move so much to the center of the broader cultural conversation. And I think that play did that also. Yes, I think part of it. So.
I mean, I feel like that I felt after seeing that play, the play is going to do that. And so every play I wrote, I sort of thought, I wanted to like be in the center of culture.
You'd hand it to your agent and be like, it's the next Angels. And 2 years later, yeah, okay, this one.
I did always have a kind of fantasy that a play can be at the center of culture. Everybody can go see it, talk about it. You could affect the culture. And really, there was no play. I mean, I haven't seen Hamilton, obviously. I know the phenomenon of it. But it's a musical, and that's nothing to say that musicals are not as good as plays. But I'm a playwright. And I don't think there's been a play since Angels in America that has achieved that cultural centrality. Not even close, really.
I don't think so.
And I feel like
there are plays that maybe should have.
Yeah, there's definitely plays that should have. Yeah. But I wonder if I would have continued to write plays if I hadn't thought that a play could do that. Like a big part of my adjustment to writing today and now is to feel like actually a play will never be at the center of culture. Like plays can't really do that.
Yeah.
So what are they? Because that was like in my mind is like that's a play can be at the center. I'm going to write plays in that mode.
So what are they?
I think that's the question. What is art? Not that we have to go too long in a philosophical question like that, but what is art today? And I think that's something that, I mean, every artist has to think about it a bit, but I mean, especially in an era where everybody is sort of curating their own experience through social media and their devices and stuff, it is different. When we saw that play, that was it. Like if you wanted to communicate, you sort of had to, if you wanted to communicate outside of your personal relationships, you had to be an artist. There was no other way. You didn't have a web page, you didn't have a Facebook account. So that to me was what an artist was. You wanted to talk to more than your little, and you would have to create a work that could galvanize a mass audience.
But that's still true, right? Like anyone can make a video of themselves singing on YouTube, but only an extraordinary piece of YouTube singing will sort of become a gravitational center that draws people to it. I don't know my point.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think for me it's learning to change how I
sorry, yeah, for the online. Sorry.
All right.
Sorry.
Speak up, Chris.
Sorry. Learning how to think of if I'm writing a play, it will not be the center of the culture. But then what is it? How does that change how I write? Where am I fitting in? Where is my audience? That is something I don't really have any answers, but that's part of what I'm trying to figure out. As
selling a pilot was apparently one of your and is a good answer. A good answer. Well, yeah, because television sort of allows for. We're in a weird moment in television where no one knows how to draw a giant audience or make money anymore. They'll figure it out again, but for the time being, they don't know, and that's really lucky for artists because it means right now the only thing they can chase is quality. You know, they can't chase something that checks a particular box because they don't know what will work. So a statistic I always remember, about Angels in America is that, it was produced on Broadway, it was produced in every major regional theater in the country, it was produced in every country in the world, and more people watched it the first night it aired, the TV movie version aired on HBO, than had seen it in every production of it combined ever up to that point. Which gives you, which just in terms of order of magnitude gives you like a sense of the reach of one medium versus another. Which before we all get depressed about that, on the one hand, it's an argument for like, while there's exciting work to in television doing some of that, but also the flip side of it is that one of the answers to why you keep doing theater is that a byproduct of the fact that it is more rarefied is that it remains the place where you can kind of do whatever you want. and where you as the playwright, people will tell you all kinds of things. They'll give you notes, they'll say we won't produce it unless you change X, Y, and Z, but you can try to get someone else to produce it. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, you as the playwright don't have to change a word or a comma if you don't want to. And that will never be true. So.
Yeah. No, I think that is true, and I think it speaks to how special that element of playwriting is. That we still want to do it, even though we know, oh, we're never going to have angels in America. Right. Play on Broadway for years, and that's highly unlikely to happen. But that quality of intimacy, of really getting to be who you are and communicate.
What you said originally, I mean, what else is it for, not figuratively speaking, for you, Chris Shinn, to go see the four of us without ever having met and have an experience there that gets you saying to your therapist, I feel like I saw who this guy is. Yeah. And then when you met me, where you're like, oh no, I was wrong.
Well, then when did we meet? We haven't.
We met. This is my memory. Yeah. I think we had to communicate because then we would like see each other's work or read each work and write to each other. Yeah. I think we first met face to face. I want to say it was on the sidewalk outside a play we were both seeing downtown. Okay. So odd. I don't remember. It was like a very odd, like cool, weird theatrical thing with like posters in the wall talking or something. I don't remember exactly what it was. I want to say it was like some contemporary take on Medea or something. This may be a dream I've had that I should discuss with my therapist. I think that's where we met. We were outside a play. It was like, oh, we're finally. I have a vague memory. I don't remember what the play was. Yeah. It was less important than the fact that we finally met. Yeah. It was just the occasion.
I remember Itamar has this amazing play, Evening of One Acts, called Love Stories. I remember one of the emails to you was about that, because I loved it so much. And I remember a very prominent critic was on a date, or brought his date to the show and was making out before the show. I'd never seen anything like that. I don't know if I wrote that in the message.
I don't remember that. Yeah. Did that person end up giving me a good review?
No, I don't know.
But I remember that. But I remember
you had a good time.
It was a pretty dark. It's a sort of dark and sobering evening of plays about the impossibility of one connection. So I hope if they were making out before the show that they like walked out in stony silence after, unable to look at one another. I do remember, like, that's one of the few times I got like a fairly good review from the Times, and I remember you sent me a message that was like, I was glad to see that review was pretty good, but it wasn't good enough. That was really. I thought was really nice. Yeah, my other favorite story involving the two of us, by the way, is that the South Coast Rep is this great regional theater in Costa Mesa. They do a lot of new plays. They do a festival every year called PPF, it's a Playwrights Festival, where they workshop new plays. It's a great sort of supporter of new work, and my play Completeness had its first workshop there, and they have a program with like bios and the playwrights pictures, and the picture of me was a picture of Chris. And then like some intern was like really mortified, and they put an insert in the program. The only thing, it was just my bio again, but with a correct picture of me. That was the insert in the program. But they couldn't take out the picture of you. So, and what I love about that story is we did some talk together. It was me, you, and Adam Rapp, and Stephen Adler Jervis at something. This is like 5 years ago or something. And so the thing that announced that, the picture that associated was a picture of you. And so if you Google my name, one of the pictures that comes up is that picture of you. But it's not the first one. It's like on like the 6th row. So what that means is some intern Googled me. Let me pull a picture for the program. I looked at all the actual pictures of me and was like, nah, this one. Anyway, they were fired. No. That's really fun. Yeah, it's good.
Speaking of, we've had some references to therapists. But your mom is
my mom is a therapist.
Yeah, I feel like
she comes up in my therapy.
I would imagine. I mean, maybe this is like a cliche question, but did her awareness, consciousness of human psychology, is that part of what you think resulted in the kind of writer you are?
That's a really good question. It's sort of impossible to answer because it's kind of like asking, like she, probably looms so large in just the shaping of me and the lens through which I see the world that I can't even see it. You know, it's sort of like asking me how the sort of whatever's on the inside of my iris, like, you know, impacts how I see the world. Like, it impacts everything, but I don't know. I don't know how. I mean, people always ask, oh, your mom's a therapist. Like, what was that like? As though she was like constantly analyzing and dissecting everything I said, or I couldn't tell her a dream I had lest she, you know, analyze it and tell me what it meant. But she wasn't like that at all. She didn't really bring it home in that way. But she did talk in general terms about things that she just, you know, sort of issues that were coming up with clients, or I remember when I was in high school, I asked her, I think it was after I read Watchmen for the first time by Alan Moore, where there's a character named Rorschach whose mask is like a shifting plot. And I asked her about Rorschach tests, and she taught me how to administer one. So I think, when I think of her now, I think that she's a really great, of the members of my immediate family, she's the one I find it easiest to talk to, actually. She's like a great sort of reflective listener, a very active listener, which is, of course, like a professional requirement. So I'm sure all of that, I don't know, it must have sort of shaped my interest in people and how psychology manifests in behavior, I guess. But I don't feel consciously aware of it. So, yeah. What do your parents do?
My dad passed away in 2002. He was a money manager. And my mom was just working in the town where I grew up, coordinating between teachers and parents. Neither was an intellectual in any way. My mom had been really deprived of culture as a kid, and had had desires and ambitions to like be in the school play, and her stepmother wouldn't do it. And I think she was really determined to introduce me to a world she had not been given access to. So she was taking me to plays, musicals, and technology media. And even though my dad wasn't, you know, he was a WASP from Connecticut who, you know, was in the Air Force, studied economics at Occidental, UCLA, and then went into Wall Street money management. He was a sensitive guy. And I remember we would go to movies and we would cry at E.T. or Field of Dreams.
Wow, Field of Dreams.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, like it was, you know, the only time I really saw him really emotional. So I think there was like a combination of understanding, oh, my father has like these depths that I don't see any other time, but they exist, and it's works of art that awaken them. And my mom is exposing me to all this culture, so there's this world of movies and plays and musicals out there. I became very aware of that is something that exists, and there's a way to communicate and reach people in ways that.
Right, people who might be closed off in other ways might be a way to open them up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that was a very personal aspect of writing. On some level, I was always like trying to understand my parents, awaken their emotions, and heal their trauma.
Right. Yeah.
And all that good stuff.
Right. Right. Those are the two motivations. Right. It's like healing your parents' traumas or like causing them additional traumas.
Right. Yeah.
Two things we do that aren't.
Also, something we have in common. It sounds like they're very different. Schools are very different places, but your high school is really racially diverse.
Yeah, I mean Berkeley High. I don't know what the statistics are now, but in the mid-90s when I was there, it was like 30% white, 30% black, 15% Asian, 10% Hispanic, like 5% mixed race, or something like that. I don't know what that adds up to.
I mean, I don't know. I'll be curious what your experience was. I went to a magnet school in Hartford. There was one for every student from the city. There was one from the suburbs. So it was pretty. The suburbs of Hartford being predominantly white. It was about 50-50 students of color, white students. I didn't really realize till much later in life how rare that still seems to be for white people in America. A lot of white people never, at a young age, meet a person of color. they're never in a classroom. They don't get to know them. They're not friends with them.
Yeah.
And I've wondered if that impacted me as a writer. There's a quality of how to say it. You seem to me to understand what people are like. Like you're curious about people. Your characters are distinct. Like they don't feel all the same. They feel like they're very finely understood and rendered, which may just be because you had sensitive parents, and they have nothing to do with going to integrated high school. But there's an experience of otherness when you learn at the age, like, oh, there's people who are not like me.
Yeah.
Their experience of reality is totally different. Something begins, a process begins in your psyche if you're a sensitive person, which is like, I need to understand. Like,
I think the impact, I'm curious, I want to turn this question back around to you in a second, but I think the biggest impact, I went to private school, I was in this sort of very privileged sort of bubble at first. And Berkeley High was a little bit of I really desperately wanted to go there, partly for that reason. But it was also a little bit of a shock. And I feel like the biggest impact that kind of experience had on me was you're forced to confront the fact that your point of view is not the default. Your point of view is not a neutral one from which other points of view are a deviation. And it's interesting because I wrote a play about Berkeley High for Berkeley Rep that they did, and I'm sort of trying to bring it back now because when I wrote it, it was just like, I'm going to write a play about my high school experience. But as it sort of sat in the drawer for the last 10 years or 8 years since that production, I've begun to feel like Berkeley is sort of a canary in the mine in terms of the arguments we were having at Berkeley High 20 years ago when I was there is the national conversation right now about privilege, about race, about gender. It's the argument the country's having right now. And so in the presidential election, everything, it's sort of like people were sort of shocked to be confronted with these questions. And I remember being yelled at about this stuff, in the hallways of my high school in 1994. And so I think, in this specific case of that play, like the ideas in it, that's sort of more surface level than you're talking about. You're talking about something deeper, and I think the impact I'm most aware of is, the sort of, adolescent viewpoint in which you're the main character of life, like life's a movie and you're the protagonist. A place like Berkeley High knocks that out because it's like I'm not even on the cool episodes of this show. I'm an extra in the cool parts of the show and the interesting parts, or it's this perspective's constantly shifting around. So I think that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was at your school?
I think as I went to the performing arts school, and it was great. I studied acting, and immensely talented teachers and classmates. And I don't really remember actually how much I thought about these things consciously at the time. I was aware that I was in a world that was not the world of the town world, and I was learning about something very different that I knew existed, but I didn't understand it in a deep way, in a personal way. But I feel like there's writers who, like, every character seems to be part of their psyche. Like Edward Albee, it's not someone you go to see a great diverse array of human psyche. It's all kind of like a vibe. It's sort of like him, in lots of different people. So I'm not saying like inherent to playwriting is appreciation of difference, but I think inherent to a certain kind of playwriting, there is real appreciation of how people are different, and how different psyches interact with one another.
And partly I think that also I'm very sensitive to. I don't like stacking the deck. I sort of feel allergic to it. Like it's tempting to be like, I know the answer to this, but if you try to write a play where the point is to reach a conclusion that you've already reached before you began writing the play, and your purpose is to convey that conclusion to other people, you're going to fail. The play's not going to be good. And it's a tremendous mistake, and you always have to take that point of view that you think you've already figured out and make it something someone thinks at the beginning, and then spend the whole play attacking it.
Yeah.
And to do that, you need to give really equally strong points of view to everything that's coming up.
I mean, I don't know why I think we have that in common. Our work in some ways is really different, but I think that's in common. And I wonder if the world of therapy and the world of diverse high school, that's my goal.
Is that the part of the Venn diagram where we? No, that's good. That's good. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. What about musicals? I mean, I've been working on a very small one, so I have some minor appreciation for the challenges or the differences.
Yeah, I've done a couple of that. Like the last few things I've done were musicals, and I never intended to. Like I wasn't one of those people who grew up like listening to the cast albums. My first theater experiences were musicals. I think it's true for a lot of people.
Which one? What was your first?
My older sister was involved in the Bay Area Youth Theater. So my first things I saw was when I must have been 6 or 7 or 8, and I went to see her. She's 4 years old, but she would have been 10, 11, 12 in Bye Bye Birdie and Fiddler and Annie at the Bay Area Youth Theater. And there was this other musical called The Boy from New York City, which some like local Bay Area writers had written. But I saw them in that, like it was in there with those other 3. So I thought there were these 4 really famous musicals: Annie, Fiddler, Bye Bye Birdie, and The Boy from New York City. I thought they were just sort of, that was the pantheon in my 8-year-old mind. So the ones I ended up working on, one was with, actually I mentioned the like cool theater kids at Berkeley High. So one of them was this guy, Gaby Alter, who was 3 years older than me. He was a senior at Berkeley High when I was a freshman. He was like the composer on those rock musicals in the pizza place. And our families were friends, so I knew none of them when I was a little kid. And he ended up moving to New York and going to NYU's MFA program in musical theater writing. So when he got out of school, it was like, we should be world friends, write music, I write plays, we should just be together. So that was where Nobody Loves You came from, which was the satire we did about reality TV. So that was just me and Gaby wanting to make something together, because we were hanging out anyway, and we had what felt like complementary skills and like a shared taste. So that came from there, and then I did an adaptation of the Jonathan Lethem novel, Fortress of Solitude. That happened because I read the book, and I liked the book, and then Daniel Aukin, who's a director I worked with, and Michael Friedman, a great composer lyricist, who at the time I just knew socially, like we were seeing we never worked together, but they called me and they were like, do you want to work with us on turning Fortress of Solitude into a musical? And my simultaneous 2 thoughts were, that's never going to work, and yes, because I loved the book, and I wanted to work with those 2 guys, and I was like, I definitely want to be associated with this failed project. Not that it did. I mean, we made a show, and we did it in Dallas, and we did it at the Public, and I think but I always knew it was going to be like a dark, sad, weird musical, like, and with their final song, and sure enough, it was. The final song is like, everything's sad, and maybe we can hold on to some happy things in our memories, but it's a very unforgiving show. I think Friedman's score for it is amazing. I recommend buying the cast album. Available on iTunes. And then the band's visit. I'd seen the movie, and Yazbeck. So I've always had a particular reason to say yes, but and I'm interested in the form. It's like having worked in a number of forms, musicals. It's the hardest. It's the hardest thing to work with. It's trying to get a musical.
Do you know why that is?
I think it's partly because there's so many moving parts. It's hard to get them. It's hard to get them all working together, and it's really hard to change. It's really hard to know what you have until you're seeing it fully realized, and then once it's already being fully realized, it's really hard to change anything major. So, and that's why I think sometimes those incredibly rare sort of savants like Lin-Manuel Miranda or Sondheim are people who can write music and lyrics and and book if they're that it's almost more likely to work if the whole thing can be the product of a single person's vision. But it's so rare that you can do that it's tricky. They're just and they're only, each one is different. Like you never know how to write a musical. At best, you kind of figure it out how to write that musical, and then you work on the next one, and the rules are completely different. How to get anyone to sing? Why would they just start singing? So that's how That's how that happened.
What is it? I mean, music is so powerful. We were talking about.
Yeah.
There's like a primal power to music.
Yeah.
When you write a play, you don't. There's no songs. Everything is through dialogue.
Yeah.
And what I'm curious about how, if at all, you perceive a difference in how people speak, and you are trying to create these musical moments. When they lift off, it is smooth and it makes sense.
Right. I mean,
how does that change how you write? Or
I think it helps to have like a conceit that is connected to what your show is about, and then it's also helpful to ignore that conceit whenever it works better to ignore it, if that makes sense. Like, Nobody Loved It was a show about reality television. So we decided, well, there's two layers of reality. There's reality, and then when you're on camera, everyone's going to behave and feel the same way, and that's how. So people will only sing when they're on camera. And then after a while, we were like, well, now we're handcuffed because we can only have the characters sing when the camera's around them. What if we want them to sing? So we'll ignore that rule. So or maybe like there are moments in real life. So you start to sort of you establish a conceit and then complicate it. Yeah. And then in Fortress of Solitude, the whole story is steeped in music. The main character is like a music critic. The other main character's father is this musician. So that show is sort of about the role music plays in our lives, how it's always on in the background during all of our important moments. And the lyrics might not directly apply to what's happening, but then they feel like they do because we always associate that song with that experience. We try to make that work. And then the band's visit for One of the Atlantic is about an orchestra. So there's musicians on stage, and so sort of use that.
What about, are you in any writers groups? And
I haven't. Are you in a writers group?
I'm not, and I think I asked that because I think I knew you were. So
I haven't one.
Yeah. I don't know why.
Have you been thrown out of some of them?
I've never been thrown. I've never been in them. And like when I hear my friend who's I think in a group with you talk about it, I'm like, it sounds like a very exotic thing. So I would be curious to just hear about why do you do it? What do you like about it? Are there downsides to it? What is that experience?
I think on the whole, I recommend it. I think that it can give you especially if it's a group of people that you trust, who are smart. And I think it's hard for people meanwhile, and you'll get notes from a lot of different people, but it's hard for people who aren't also playwrights to understand exactly what goes into making a play. And then if you are in a group for a while and you bring in work and you're all doing each other's work, you get to know each other, each other's sort of tics or strengths and weaknesses, or when you might actually have enough trust to be able to say, like, you're kind of doing that thing you sometimes do where you should really go in this direction, but you're protecting yourself by, you can sort of get to that place. You've been doing it for long enough. Yeah. It's really exciting.
Yeah, it's really intimate.
Yeah, but people bring in all kinds of stuff. People bring in screenplays, people bring in, TV pilots, and it's just, it gets you. Writing can be very solitary. It gets you out of the house into a group situation, which is just psychologically healthy. It's an even sort of earlier stage of getting to hear something than giving it to, actors to read or showing with your agent or whatever. Like, before anyone's seen it, here's the first 4 scenes of something. You're not going to call it the theater to get a relationship with it. You might, I suppose, depends, what the relationship with them is like. But if you want, I have 2.5 scenes of something, and it'll take us the first 25 minutes of our meeting to read it. So someone else has something short, So I don't know. It can be. Are there downsides? I think probably the same downside with anything safe that becomes safe or comfortable. That's sort of on you to not use it as a crutch. Let me bring my play into group for the 5th time, instead of doing it so I can refine it. You know what I mean? That's sort of on you.
Do you feel like you learn things about your play? Like people say things that you think that's right, and that's going to help me in a practical way.
It can, and then I think you sort of have an instinct for when it's not, and then also to be there for the other people, sort of friend. So nothing's more fun than telling someone else how to fix their play. What's your sort of like if you're not in a group? So what do you do when you finish a play?
I don't know if this is good or bad, but I will really hold on to it until I feel confident that I'll still learn if somebody has a critique that I think about and then feel is correct. but I feel really confident when I hand my work over. Like I learned that if I hand something before I really feel like I have confidence in it, know what it is, then I'm in danger.
Right.
So I really wait till I feel like could be produced tomorrow.
Is the danger that if you're not confident yet, the play is too vulnerable to things people might say, or like it's like concrete that hasn't set yet, and someone might, figuratively speaking, like leave a handprint in it, but you'll never completely be able to get out or something?
I think my fear is really that if there's something really wrong with it, and I know that there's something wrong, that what other people think is wrong won't be what's really wrong. But then I will feel like that is the way to fix it. Like
Right.
if there's some consensus about what's wrong.
Yeah.
And
It actually, sorry.
do you know what I mean?
Yes, and it took me years to figure this out. I feel like this is one of the most important things I realized over the years. I always used to assume that if I was excited about something and I gave it to someone and they liked it, or if I was anxious and didn't feel confident and I gave it to someone and they had problems with it, I would make the, in retrospect, completely unfounded assumption that the thing they were excited about was the same thing I thought was exciting about it, and the thing that they disliked was the same thing I was. And there's no reason to think that that's true.
Yeah.
And it's actually almost never true. And then I would have these confusing experiences where people would be excited about a play, and I'd be like, I agree, it's almost there. I just have to fix these two things. And I fix the two things, and they'd be like, oh, you ruined what I was excited about. And it turns out, yeah. So that's dangerous.
So I feel like when I give things to people, I want to feel like I can defend anything in it. I know why it's there, and maybe we'll just disagree.
Right.
And then I can see this disagreement. Nobody has to like what you write. They're allowed to not like it. That's in fact life. Nobody should like everything you write all the time.
I disagree, but go on.
It's not normal. But yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Part of me is like, I should share my work, earlier, and maybe I'm just really defensive. But yeah, my fear is always that if I know it needs to be fixed, but I don't know yet what I think needs to be fixed, then I get confused with what people say, and I worry that it has to address the problem on the level of this.
I want to ask you about one other thing. You don't have to talk about it too much.
Okay.
When I saw your play in Hartford, which is a beautiful play, and I hope that's in your production soon, you had a health scare, and like a serious one. Yeah. And you approached that play. This is what I read about it in the program features before. What if this is the last play? And thankfully, that's not going to be the case. Yeah. I don't know what my question is exactly, but I was so struck by that, and it made me think of the Will play Tom Paine, which is this beautiful, weird, amazing monologue play that we wrote years ago. And there's a line in it I remember where the monologuist says something like, "What would you do if you knew you only had one day left to live?" And then next sentence is something like, "What would you do if you knew you only had 50 years left to live?" And the linking of those two ideas, and I was like, "This is going to change my life." Oh my God, I would apologize to everyone I haven't apologized to yet. I would heal whatever relationship. I would sit down and write about, the thing I haven't written yet that I desperately want to write. But it's like, well, so anyway, that's my rambling non-question.
Yeah.
Just, I guess, about that experience and
well,
how it.
The play's called An Opening in Time, and I was thinking about time because I didn't know how much time I was going to have at that point, and I may have really limited time, so this is it. If I have to leave one communication, this is it. So let me really think about it. What do I want to say? And I think your mind gets really focused if you're thinking in that way, because you're like, I have to condense everything into one work. But also, you really don't want to be misunderstood. So you want it to be really clear. I want it to be really clear. And I thought of like late plays, like the one that was on my mind was The Winter's Tale, which is not his final play, but very close to Shakespeare's penultimate play. I feel like that play is so clear. The story is so simple, and it's very complex in other ways, but the message of the play to me is very clear. Somebody does something rash, irrational, spends a lot of time thinking about it, and goes through a real process of mourning and grieving. Through that process, what was lost is restored. It's a beautiful, beautiful play about recognizing your own pathology, and that if you work on yourself, you can undo your pathology in time. But it takes a lot of time and a lot of hard work and a lot of suffering. To me, that's pretty clear in that play. So I was like thinking in that way, like I want to write a play about intimacy and love, and I need to make it as complex as I feel those issues are, but also really, really simple, so that if, God forbid, this is it, people can find this play and say, oh, this is what he's saying. Now, because the play hopefully will still be produced, I won't say now what I think the play is saying, but that's how I thought of it. I thought of it like, this is me telling someone as clearly, theatrically, but as clearly as possible in the language of who I am, what I feel, what I think.
Which is, of course, presumably what you do every time you say that to write.
Yeah, but, it's funny. This guy, Max Ripa, who I was treated with, who died a couple months ago now, his final book, really his first, he had some chaplets of poetry. He wrote a book of poems called Four Reincarnations. And I looked at I just got it, I looked at the dedication, and it was the kind of dedication you would do if you knew you were done. That's how I read it. He included his exes in the dedication. So for my parents, for my friends, for my doctor, for my exes, it was like everything. And I was really touched by that. And it made me sad because I thought he knew this was the only book. So all the dedications have to be for this one. And I thought, I'm not dying, so I wouldn't have a dedication like this. I wouldn't need one, but if I were, my dedication would be really simple. And I remember, in fact, thinking specifically, I don't want to, if I were dying, I would forgive my exes. But I don't want to forgive them while I feel.
I understand completely.
And it was weird to have that double consciousness, because in a way, yes, you do want to live as if you could die tomorrow, because you could, you never know. But at the same time, there is a difference.
Yeah, you can't either. You can't. It would be exhausting.
Yeah, exactly.
3 days later, you'd be like, oh my God. Yeah.
So the play I wrote after an opening time, that we're going to do the reading of in a week, that feels to me more like, I'm going to have many plays after this one. It doesn't have that quality of, this is it. If God forbid, this is it. This is what I'm saying. It feels like there'll be many plays after this. And I do feel like I have to say everything I can feel.
Maybe that's where we should open it up to questions. I don't know.
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
Considering good mortality.
I have one first, if that's
Great.
okay. But we'll turn it on because we do have some. Hopefully we'll turn on. We'll stay on. Okay, but I'll go into it because that would be great. I was really interested when you were talking about going to diverse high schools, and actually because you've also become a real advocate for a community that is never really included when you talk about diversity, which is the disability community. So I was wondering if you would talk about, and it sort of ties in, I think, a little bit to what you were just talking about in mortality, but how have you felt any pushback when you tried to advocate for disabled actors, disabled characters, or how has that?
I think everybody knows now. We've come a long way with questions of representation, and I think we know that you just sort of have to represent people authentically. You can't take it, at least in theater. That's all. I mean, we did my play Teddy Flora, which has a disabled character, at the Goodman 2013, and even that, I think we were sort of ahead of some conversations when we did that play. But even then, we were going to find a disabled actor for that part. And when we did the play, the Delmar in 2015, again, there was just no question. It was like we have to, no matter how long it takes to find someone who's both disabled and appropriate for the role, and someone who would work, we're going to do it. So I've never felt, I feel like maybe in theater, those are both highly resourced theaters.
Find someone, because did you see the article recently about theater in Canada? There's a musical about the marathon runner Terry Fox, who's a Canadian, hero, and he's being played by an able-bodied actor, and he's wearing like a black tunic with a prosthetic in front of it, so it's like kabuki. If it's black, you can't see his real life, And there's, you know, on one side there's an outcry that they didn't try to find a disabled actor, and then another's like, oh, maybe the story wouldn't have been told. It just is so, I don't know. Sometimes you can't get people to understand the authentic representation.
My experience with it is that when people say, well, it would be too hard to find the person, there are cases in which that's true, but they are a much smaller number of the cases than the number of cases in which people say it. It sometimes is a little harder. You sometimes have to look a little longer, but the actors are almost always out there.
I mean, obviously it's easier for you, Chris, to say we're not doing my play until we find the appropriate actor. But when I take my play, not that I have one, but if I took my play somewhere, it would be harder for me to insist on it. Right. So, you know, as a member of the Dramatists Guild, I could, but it just seems like that's sort of the last diversity frontier that we just really need to knock down that last wall.
Yeah. I think it will. I mean, yeah, no, I think it will take a while. I think it will take a while. I think these questions tend to be resolved over time in a way that is, you know, just. I mean,
the arc of history bends towards justice.
In this area, it really does. We've made so much progress in the last 10 years. You know, I think it may still take a long time and be hard, but it will. People, I think, just understand. There's something distasteful about having actors with no direct experience of something represent that experience.
I mean, it's so.
We had to. Speaking to that, is I don't know if this has ever been said, but there was an actor who auditioned for Teddy in London who pretended to be disabled. And I just did a pretty convincing job because, people at the audition first believed he was disabled, and then casting director did some sleuthing and asked some questions, and it became clear and the actor did admit that he was not disabled at all, that he was pretending. So actors know that you need to seem that you're the real thing.
Oh, that's a whole other.
That's a really complicated little story.
Well, that's a play.
Yeah, and then what happens is he keeps up the ruse. If he gets the part, he keeps up
Well,
the ruse.
I mean, if it had not been figured out and we cast him, God forbid, and we figured out during, or somebody who knew him wrote it better and said, by the way, I went to school with this guy who's able-bodied, would have been destroyed the play. Certainly, absolutely will. But thank God we.
Well, thank you for asking. I think Susan, is that right, has a question on Shindig? I'm so excited to see what happens.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Hi. Yes.
Hi. I'm in California. How are you?
Good.
Great.
Well, I'm a new. Pardon?
What's your question?
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
I'm a new writer. I've been an actor since I was 18, and I wrote my own solo show, and now I'm bringing characters into it. And my question is, rather than just having readings in my living room, how do you make yourself known? What are the best ways? You mentioned contests. I know there are festivals and that kind of thing, but I'm kind of done with festivals. It just ends up being a whole financial thing and doesn't really seem to go anywhere. So I was just wondering if you had any good advice about that.
It's the eternal question, I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like most things in life happen through relationships, and the more people you get to know, and the more you develop friendships around your work and theater, and the more you see plays and get to know people who work at theaters, everything flows from people knowing who you are and liking you and talking. And
I would agree with that. I think people sometimes have this idea that there's a very specific linear path that's like, get an agent, and then the agent puts it in the hand of the literary department. The literary manager gives it to the artistic director. And in fact, that's very rarely how it works. Like, one of the pieces of advice I give playwrights starting out is to, avoid the literary office whenever possible. Like if you can in any way get around a theater's literary office and get the play directly to an artistic director. And well, you know, Chris and I both were sort of starting out a while ago now, so things change rapidly. But I can say that when I was starting out, a lot of my early production experiences happened before I had an agent, and before I had a lot of relationships. It was that kind of like an actor I knew who had done a play at a particular regional theater, reading my play and giving it to the artistic director, you know, and then you do a lot of stuff like that, and most of it doesn't lead anywhere, right? If you knock on 49 or 50 doors and 49 of them don't open, but then, so anyone, because the thing about people, you know, the thing about agents is their job is to sort of distribute and promote your play, and so your play is actually due to a little bit of suspicion when it comes from an agent, because it's like, of course they're going to, you know, submit it and say good things about it. And so the secret weapon, I think, in all of this is that theater is full of non-competitive collaborators, people whose success isn't in competition with yours, but interdependent with yours. You know, writers, directors, actors, designers. And so if you know, and you said you were an actor for a long time, so, you know, just get your script into the hands of as many people as you can, and, you know, they pass it along, and hopefully in an almost informal and, as Chris said, relationship-based way, doors start to open. Yeah, that's my best answer.
Yeah.
Can I answer your
Thank
question?
you. Yes, just get out there.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Susan. Any questions in the? I have a whole list, but you don't want to hear from me all day. Do you have any questions in here? What are we doing? All right, great. I'll start. And maybe this will prompt you. You guys spoke so beautifully about who you are as writers, and I kind of want to know how you write, because I'm sort of a nuts and bolts kind of person myself. So, you know, are you morning writers? I have a really hard time with writing more than 5 minutes at a time.
I write with a quill.
Great, I'm gonna go get one.
I used to be, many years ago, sort of not write anything for a long time and then write a ton, like, in 2 days type person. And at a certain point, I think around the time I was getting out of grad school, I consciously sort of made this decision on, if this is going to be my day job, I sort of have to treat it like that. And so for many years now, I've, generally speaking, had a sort of ritual where I get up and try to make writing the first thing I do for the first few hours every day. So if I'm being good, maybe I'll be at my computer at 8:30, maybe some days it's more like 9 or 9:15, and I'll try to just make progress on something for 2 or 3 hours between then and noon or 12:30 or 1 before I take a break. And so then the question becomes, not will I write today, but will I get back to writing later today, because I've already done something. The answer is often no, I won't get back to writing later today, both because your brain gets taxed and you can only do so much, or because, you know, you go do other things. But I do try to knock out something first thing. And you know, I don't know. For me, when I have an idea and I'm excited about it, that's the easy part. For me, the question I'm still wrestling with and constantly wrestling with is, how do you most productively and inspiringly spend in between time? When you know what your next play is and you're a third of the way through it or halfway through it, you're going to hit snags, but at least you know the sort of framework you're working inside. When you're like, I don't know what the next thing even is. Is the most productive thing to sit there staring at the screen? Is it to go for a walk? Or does the right thing to do to the untrained eye look exactly like Ethan Off?
You mean when you're in the middle of writing a play, or before?
Let's back up. What's your process? How do you write?
I used to go in those bursts and manic, stretches, and then as I got older, I was like, oh, I can't do this right anymore. So now I'll try to start by like 10:30, 11, and go to till 4 or 5. That's like the sweet spot.
Interesting. So you get through, because to me, the 2 p.m., 3 p.m. is like the pits of existential despair.
I have I can get through them. I'll have breakfast and dinner. I don't have lunch. because food is so like satisfying that if I get distracted by food, I will not write anymore. So like I like have my breakfast, and then I'm like I can't eat again until dinner, and I have this sound, and wanting to eat is helpful because it makes me know there's this reward later. So yeah, from like 11 to 4 or 5. That's like the hope. And sometimes I only go 11 to 2 or something. Yeah. You know, I'll go to the gym at the end of the day and then I'll eat. And it's like it's become a very rigid. I've become very like, regimented the older I get.
The short-term psychological reward system is important. We really are, on some level, mice in cages, like pushing a button to get sugar water.
Yeah, that's why I like
experiments I just made up.
I know it's true. That's why I like notifications, because I put my phone down and have to write for a stretch. And then when it becomes painful and too much, I just pick up that phone hoping there's text. There's like somebody tweeted, there's like distraction rewards coming. And so I try to like keep a lot of little distraction rewards going. So I can like put down the phone, all right, 30 minutes, and I get to check and see what goodies are waiting. So yeah, no, the little rewards I think is really helpful.
And do you write one piece at a time, or are you juggling different things? Or
I try to only write one thing at a time. I have a really hard time writing multiple things.
Yeah, I also have trouble getting good work done on more than a thing at a time, but then I sometimes knowingly, even knowing that I do it anyway, like because nothing has grabbed me enough. Yeah, but as painful as it sometimes is to force yourself to focus on just one thing, I think ultimately you have to really finish something. So often jumping to a different project is a way of just not facing the self-doubt that's coming up. Well, I'll be at the beginning of something else before the self-doubt sets in.
Yeah. If I'm really blocked, I'll allow myself to be blocked. I'll be like, it's fine to be blocked. It's not my fault. I just try to tell myself it's okay.
Right.
I'll take a bath and I'll read a book and I'll just like try to not berate myself. Because my superego is really harsh on me. It's always telling me to write more, faster, and better. And I can't fully dismantle it. I've tried for years and years. I've gotten much better, but there's still a feeling like, why aren't you writing better and more faster? Why? And so like I've learned when that voice gets strong, I have to stop writing. And just really tell myself it's okay. You cannot be expected to be writing well all the time, and you can read, you can rest, you can take naps.
To some degree, that's gotten more difficult for me as I've gotten older. When I was younger and I felt like I had all the time in the world, it didn't matter what project I picked next because I would have time to pick the next one after that. And I become, I'm not ancient yet exactly, but I have become old enough, I guess, to be more acutely aware of if I invest in this, that's the next X number of months and years. That can be paralyzing. Yes, we gotta let that super go down.
It's not easy.
that's just thinking.
I'm interested in
Alex!
I'm interested in how you find the next idea. As far as you've got something on your mind and you're like, great, I'm going to write about this. And then you've done that and you've written your last, maybe it might be your last play. And you're like, great, I've said that thing I had to say. And then where's the next thing? How do you not just sort of end there?
That's a good question. And I think, Bash Doran, is another playwright. I was talking about this with her recently, that when you write something, you in a way, the next thing you write should always be the thing you're most scared to write. And if you can get yourself to do that and you succeed in doing it, you might have done something really good, but then you can't manufacture something else even scarier or even deeper. You have to wait until that next vulnerability or that next deep true thing you need to say exposes itself. And if you've been, what I was talking about with Bash was that you're trying to force yourself to write that next play and you're just getting frustrated because you're trying to feel the same high that you felt delving into the previous thing, and it's not that you can't manufacture it. But there is always I don't know, something else. There is always something else. Right? Yeah. There's always another layer to the onion.
I mean, it's interesting to think about like what you finish writing a play, like you've excavated that, whatever that trauma or difficulty or truth is painful, and you need you feel you need to represent. But I think you need, your psyche needs time to rest. You've been putting it through the ringer, like looking, I tell my students it's like you're, to me, writing is like looking in a room where you just like, everything you don't want to look at is in the room. And like, you just have to get used to opening the door, looking in the room, and eventually like one day you go in the room a little bit, you know, and then you come out. And like, really when you're in the core of writing the play, you like go in the room and you lock the door, and you're just in the room. Right? And it's like, for me, it's like getting to the point where I can live in that room to write the heart of the play. You can't live in that. You can't live in that room forever. You'll go crazy. You know, your psyche is like, all right, you gotta take a break. You know, but I feel like it's not that the room doesn't exist, or there's not another room. It's just you're not going in it for a while. You just need to chill.
Another sort of useful image that I found is, for me, it's like inhaling versus exhaling. Like getting the play out of you is the exhale, but you can't exhale forever either, because you die, I'm told. So, figuring out what inhaling is for reading things is going to have an experience with travel. And I'm not as good as this as I wish I was. And I'm often taken by surprise by like things that inspire me or like flood into me and I actually allow myself. This is connection to the super ego thing we were talking about. Is there'll be this powerful voice that's sort of like in me that's holding on a little bit too tightly. It's like I have to know what the next thing is. What's the next idea? And it's only when you relinquish the sort of tightness of that grip that it opens like the passageway in that for the next thing to come in. So yeah, it's counterintuitive, but it's like stop beating yourself up about it. I'm gonna go and take this advice. But yeah, sort of let it, you know, take a bath, whatever. Yeah, and let the idea come in.
You said, to my students, you teach now, you talk about how that informs your work, monetary if it's otherwise. What else?
You're taught. I mean, you're teaching today.
Yeah.
It's more recently than I've taught.
Yeah, I've taught for 12 years in the new school for drama. I've been doing it a long time. I do it for money and benefits because I really like it. And I also really like being around young people, and I feel like I know about the world in a way that I couldn't if I were not teaching. So there's many, many great, wonderful reasons to teach. I would say the biggest benefit for me, emotionally and intellectually, is that you have to think about what you believe, and then you have to articulate it. And when you have to do that work of putting it into words, you learn yourself, like what you really think and feel. And then you can you're sort of teaching yourself, because you can hear maybe flaws in your argument or like limitations or things are incomplete, and you think, oh, I should keep thinking about this because it doesn't sound great as I'm saying. Like there's flaws and limitations in what I'm saying. That's sort of my superego again too, like judging me as I'm teaching. But the superego is not just a bad thing; it's a good thing because it keeps motivating you to improve. And I feel like teaching helps me improve. Like as a dramatic artist, as an artist, I've gotten better because I have to help others.
And I haven't done it in a few years. I might teach next semester actually. That's the first time in years. But my experience with it is similar. That it's really hard to chastise your students for doing certain lazy things in their plays, or taking certain shortcuts, or following certain traps, and go on the exact same thing in their own writing. It's still possible. It's just harder if you were just telling people not to do it. And I also think it's just like, I think it's literally like neurology. Like the best way to learn something is to have to teach it. That's the scientific fact, as well as the poetic.
I noticed your notes were the exact same.
We noticed that. We noticed that beforehand.
Yeah.
We said it was the jeans too. We decided it was the playwright. Playwrights are sponsored by New Balance.
Maybe you're just in my psyche lead.
Right.
Like you're my doppelganger.
Yeah. Have you ever seen us in the same place? Maybe we're the same person.
Program.
If you're talking about writing the next thing that scares the hell out of you, or really scares you, I was just wondering how you
how you dealt with the issue of self-censorship in terms of, let's say, writing a play about a real family secret, while people around you who even mention the idea that you are attempting this or contemplating it would actually stop the relationship, would actually poison not necessarily a friendship. I'm thinking more in terms of immediate family.
Yeah.
And if that self-censorship wins, or where's the skies, or you just kind of go for it.
It's a good question. I was fortunate in that regard, in that my early impulses were to sort of abstract or more theoretical plays, although I suppose not the four of us, which is a more sort of personal play. But in terms of immediate family stuff, I didn't instinctively start with family plays. And I'm starting to do it now, and I'm coming up against that question. I guess I'm going to find, I for the first time have a play that I feel like if and when it gets produced, I sort of might be like, to my family members, you might not want to come see this one. I will say that I didn't let it stop me from writing it. And what I found when I brought, for instance, early scenes into my writers group, I would write, what felt like a very idiosyncratic and specific and unique family scene. And as soon as we read it for the first time, there was just laughs of recognition from everybody in the room. And I sort of realized, oh, like, the only people who will know how specific and personal this is are the people who already know that. To anybody else, this just seems like their family somehow. And then also, things tend not to be that. Life tends not to be structured perfectly and have all of the appropriate details to work in a play. So as you work on it, things change. They have a totally different profession, and then it's in a totally different town, and then two family members are fused. And by the time you're done, it's cloaked in a way that frees you even more. That said, there are countless stories of people, getting angry about the end of the road, or Gurney, Eric Gurney wrote a number of plays that he didn't allow to be produced in Buffalo until after his parents had passed away. So it's a thorny question. I don't know, what's your experience with that?
I Francine Prose at NYU in that fiction class. I remember she said, "It's not even a question. You have to write it. You can't even worry about it. If you're a writer, you're going to write it. You have to." And I don't know that it's like the best answer in a way, because you want to be sensitive to people, and you can really hurt people. But I understood why she boiled it down. Like, the most important thing I think for a writer is to be unrepressed. You cannot be repressed and write well, I think, or at least not the kinds of things that I like to read or see. So at the very least, you have to feel free to write it, even if you don't show it to anybody or you wait 20 years till you.
That's definitely true.
And
you don't know what else it will spark. It might, But yeah, like it is never.
So the one you wrote,
Yeah.
you didn't talk about it to anybody. Sort of
In my family, you mean?
Yeah.
I didn't ask anyone's permission to write it, the thing is, my parents are very nice. My family's very supportive of me and my writing, and they always want to read drafts of things and know what I'm working on. They sort of noticed I wasn't sharing drafts of this one, but I think they also sort of understood that they understood what I meant when I said, like, this one might. So I don't know. There's some uncrossed bridges still.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll see. Yeah.
You can't entirely predict it either. I mean, you're sitting there with your worst fear that your mother's going to freak out, or that the content's going to make somebody angry, and you're sort of spitting with these ducks.
Yeah.
Not knowing, and that's why it probably should be executed, should be done.
Yeah.
Before you start it.
For you as a writer, for your writer muscles, it's never a bad idea to write something truthful that you're excited to write. And what happens? Also, by the way, the sort of flip side is that people will think you've written about them even when you haven't. Like, that will have, like, as far as I'm concerned, I've never directly written about my family before. My father thinks any father in any play ever is referenced off stage is him, and so either way.
It's sort of like your metaphor of opening the door and slamming it as opposed to looking inside. You don't do it.
Yeah.
Years ago, I saw Arthur Miller speak, and somebody said, well, how come you didn't take 2 plays? And he said, I never wrote a play until I was exactly sure. And then after that, when he was at Venice and the Simon Alliance, he said, he said, God, I never want to know. What do you believe guys?
I don't know. It's hard to remember. You know, I never know like the whole play ahead of time. I think sometimes I have like impressionistic images of an ending.
Yeah.
But I don't think I really deeply know.
I don't think I've ever specifically known the ending before I began something. But often, somewhere in the construction of the early drafts, you see, oh, that has to be the ending. And then it's really fun and helpful to have something you're excited about to write towards. But I don't think I've ever known it before I even began. Ever. I don't think I have. Yeah.
Last question.
So you talked about finding your own inspiration for things or personal. What do you do when you're done for hire? Do you have other experience with television?
Like for the mob, or
You did Boardwalk.
that's true. I did.
So you did write for and so then, where does your voice come into something that wasn't your world, that wasn't your idea, but you have to get it from A to B in a way that feels interesting?
Yeah, I mean that's like it uses the skills that you developed as a writer without really scratching the itch that made you want to be a writer in the first place. I mean, there are people who are career staff writers and they love that, and that is the itch that they want to scratch. Is they want to immerse themselves in this world and write episodes for these characters. And but that's never been my experience. I've enjoyed the staff writing I've done, but I've always felt like I did it because I wanted to, you know, make connections in television, make some money, you know, learn how the TV side of things worked. But it's never felt sort of as close to my heart as something that's really long.
Yeah, I mean, this is my own idea of writing, but I'm still getting lots of notes from lots of people, and just learning how to navigate that. That it's not just my deep vision, and everything flows from my deep inner impulses, which is what the theater really is. You know, playwright, the play is the center, and you're the one, and it comes from you, and everything. You know, you collaborate, you compromise, but it still feels like it's still connected to your deepest impulses as a human being. And that's not really how TV is. So
No.
you just sort of have to learn that part of you is still there a little bit, but also you're integrating multiple points of view, and your job is to create something that people can all agree is the direction everybody wants to go in.
Right. It's like being a player on a team. You're trying to help the team win, but none of the games are televised. And all anybody hears is whether the team won or lost, but one person, the coach, gets all the credit. That's what it's like. Which is fun. That's what it is.
Check. Do we have any last questions? Okay, great. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, guys.
This is